Hey guys, I'm Doug with D&E in the Garage, and today I'm going to show you the proper way to replace your spark plugs. Alrighty y'all, spark plugs are one of the few things that have remained constant on engines throughout the years. Right, no matter how many computers they throw at things, they get rid of carburation, they bring in different technologies for fuel delivery. Every gas burning vehicle still needs a spark plug, right? It's one of the most common tune-ups you can do, and it's also, in my opinion, one of the tune-ups that is neglected the most, meaning everybody knows how to change spark plugs, but nobody seems to know how to change them properly, right? There's a bunch of little things that you need to do when you're changing your spark plugs to get the most out of a spark plug change and get the most out of your engine. Alright guys, first thing to do anytime you're ever messing with anything that's got any juice going to it in your Jeep, anything electrical, sensors, spark plugs, you want to remove at least the negative terminal on your battery. Tuck it away down here so that it can't accidentally connect while you're working on it. Alright, every vehicle has a different ignition system. You may have a distributor with wires. That means you'll have a little cylinder over here and there'll be wires going to each spark plug. Many cars will have coil packs. Alright, maybe you've got, like Subarus have a little coil pack that sits on top of the engine with wires going to the spark plugs. I had a Ford Ranger that each cylinder had its own coil pack sitting on top. I think that's how the new Jeep 3.7 and 3.8s are. But on this 2002 Grand Cherokee, I have a coil rail. Alrighty, so unlike some other applications where you're using a distributor or a coil pack with wires, this entire coil rail comes off at once, and then you can access all of the spark plugs at that time. So before you go removing spark plug wires, before you go pulling coil rails or coil packs, you want to take something like compressed air and just blow off the area around there. Try to get any loose debris. You might have leaves, who knows, any number of things. Alright, once you have the area blown off, you're going to go ahead and move the things that are in your way. Now on this 4.0 motor, the only real thing that's in your way from removing this coil rail are the heater core lines. Now this engine has been taken apart so many times that they don't actually sit where they should. If you're doing this on a 4.0, this connector right here is probably going to be stuck on top of one of the posts for your valve cover gasket. So you're gonna have to pop that off. What I like to do is kind of maneuver these, being gentle all the time, kind of onto the other side of the dipsticks. Once they're on the other side of the dipstick, they're kind of out of the way. Now I've seen a lot of people that go ahead and take off the throttle cables before they try to do this job. It would certainly make it a little bit easier, but I don't think it's necessary. Alrighty, so now I've got those things out of the way. It's time to remove the bolts. There's 4 bolts holding the coil rail on. On this Jeep, I believe these are a 13 or something similar. Now yours may be stuck. I literally just had these out a week ago to do some troubleshooting, so mine are going to come out real easy. Alrighty, now once I've removed those 4 bolts, I can reach back all the way at the end of this coil rail here. Let's see if you can see. You see that bit of red right here? This is the harness that holds this coil rail, or that delivers power to this coil rail. What you need is to pull this red bit out, and then the harness disconnects down. Now there's no way I'm going to be able to do that with the camera holding there, but that's where it is. You might have to fight with it a little bit. If push comes to shove, maybe take the coil rail off and then try to get it off. I like to get it off before I pull the coil rail off because I don't want to take a chance of damaging the wires or anything. Alright, once that harness is off, you can work your coil rail off. Now, remember, this is going to come off as one, and if it hasn't been off in a while, or if somebody didn't use dielectric grease, it may be difficult. So just go gentle, and remember, you don't want to be pulling on it. You don't want to run the risk of ripping it. Alrighty, now whether you have coil packs or you have spark plug wires or a coil rail like this, whatever your hardware is that delivers power to your spark plugs, you want to inspect it. So in this case, it's this integral coil rail. Each one of these is a coil pack. They're all connected together on this one coil rail. These are the spark plug tubes here. These rubber bits link over, sure you can't see down in there, but there's a little metal attachment that the end of the spark plug goes in. You want to inspect these. Make sure that none of these are cracked. Alright, make sure there's no dirt or anything down inside of there. Make sure, in this case, on like this 4.0, I make sure that this isn't cracked. All 4 of these need to be intact. This is where the bolt goes through to connect this whole rail to the head. You need all these to be intact so that there's even pressure on the coil rail. Alrighty, at this point you can see your spark plugs are exposed, and I'd recommend take some compressed air and you blow off the area again. You really don't want anything falling down into your cylinders there. Alright, before you pull your old spark plugs out, you want to make sure your new spark plugs are ready to go. So you grab your spark plug, you grab one of these. It's a spark plug gap gauge. They sell them at like the checkout line at most auto parts stores. What you do is you insert it inside your spark plug in between the electrode and the grounding post, and you slide it around the gauge until it stops. Wherever it stops is what your gap is. You can see this one's just about at 0.035, which is where these spark plugs are supposed to be for the WJ. What I usually do if the gap is incorrect is I try to adjust it. So if you put it in and it's too small, what I'll do is very carefully just sort of take the gauge and just tilt it up. You know what I mean? Just kind of tweak it to bend this grounding post up just a little bit. You want to be real careful, because if you damage this electrode down here, the spark plug is ruined. Conversely, if the gap is too large, I try to put it in a vise right down here. Put this in a vise very loosely, and take something, just with a little bit of weight, and very gently just give it a little tap. I mean, we're talking about hundredths of an inch. So the adjustments you're making are very small, but you do want all of your spark plugs to be dialed in right at the same number, whatever is suggested for your Jeep. And if you go on forums, there are people arguing endlessly about what spark plug gap you should use in any given vehicle. Another thing people will argue about endlessly is what type of spark plug. I mean, you can pay $2 per spark plug, you can pay up to $12 or $15 per spark plug. Platinum, iridium, copper. Personally, I like to put coppers in. I find they burn better, they don't last as long, but they're $2 a piece or $2.50 a piece, and they last you 20,000 miles, and then you change them. I think they give you a better, more consistent burn. You can get some iridium plugs that'll last you 40 or 50,000 miles, but they're $12 a piece. So again, if you go on the forums, people will argue endlessly about what type of plugs, and it's probably a personal choice. Now when you get your plug, it may or may not already have this washer on it. If it does not already have it on, it just means you have to put it on. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got a thinner side and a thicker side. Alright, how hard this next step is will depend completely on your vehicle. On the 4.0, it's really not that bad. What you're going to do is get a 5/8 socket and a ratchet, and you're going to be pulling out your spark plugs. Now on this 4.0, it's real easy. I mean, the spark plugs are right on the side. There's plenty of room to get in there. You don't need any universal adapters. You don't need too many extensions. I know on some cars, like on Subarus, where the heads are on the side of the motor, it can be a little tricky. Lots of transverse engines are hard because one whole cylinder is hidden. So be ready for a fight, and maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised. Like I said, on this 4.0 right here, real easy. On my wife's V637, it's kind of a pain, you gotta fish things down in there. You want to be real careful at this point. You don't want to knock anything into your cylinder. You want to put it so that the thinner side is facing your head. So put it so that the thicker side is down against the base of the spark plug. And the reason you do that is it is going to crush when you tighten it, when you torque it down. It's going to crush and form against the head to form a nice seal, so you don't have any blow-by coming out of your plug, alright? That's all you got to do. You want to make sure you put these on, or this plug will not work right. In fact, on some vehicles, if you do not put this in, the cylinder can actually hit the end of this. This actually spaces these out. So this is very important. Make sure when you put a plug in, it's got that on there. Alright, so you take your new plug, You want to be real careful. You don't want to drag. I mean, this all on the head here is greasy and it's grimy. You want to just gently place it in and start threading it in. And what I like to do is get them all hand tight and then come back with a socket to tighten them all down. Alrighty, once you have your spark plugs all installed, you're going to want to torque them down. Now every vehicle is different. Most of them are going to be in the 25 foot-pounds, 30 foot-pounds range. But look online, double check. The key here most of the time when you torque something down is to make sure it's tight enough. In this case, you're torquing it down to make sure it's not too tight. You don't want these things cranked in there. I mean, stripping out a spark plug in your head is a pretty miserable thing. So for the Jeep 4.0, it's I think 26 to 30, so I set mine right to 30. That's good enough. Alrighty, now here's something that almost nobody does anymore. This is dielectric grease. What you're supposed to do is put this on the rubber boot that goes over your spark plug, and it prevents the rubber boot and the metal inside the rubber boot from fusing to your spark plug. This makes it easier to take it off. It's important on something like the 4.0. It's really important on something like a Ford Ranger, where the this spark plug boot, this rubber bit here, goes way deep down inside the block, because if that breaks off down in there, you've got a mess on your hands, you know what I mean? Usually in the checkout line in the auto parts store, they got these right next to these. This is $1, this is like $1.50. I usually get 2 of these for a job. There's just a little bit of grease in there, and you put it right on the boot. Alright, here's what you do. You rip off one corner so that there's just a little bit of a opening in the package. You squeeze out just a little bit like that. It looks like silicone, you know. And you just put a little dab right on the inside there. So that's all I do. Just a little dab on the inside of each of your shock boots. As you put it down onto your spark plugs, it will spread around a bit, and that's all you need. But it's a very important step that nobody seems to remember. Alright, our spark plugs are installed. There's dielectric grease on our coil rail. I'm just going to work this in there. Now it's important when you're putting your, whether you have coil packs or coil rails or wires, you want to make sure you're not dragging these boots along, you know, your dirty engine block or something, because that will affect the operation later. There's nothing worse than getting done with a simple job like spark plugs and having the vehicle not run. And you're like, well, what did I do? You know, did I knock a vacuum line off? Did I not connect a sensor? So this is the point in the job where it's real easy to get sloppy. You're almost done, but this is when it's the most important to stay vigilant. Pay attention. Right, gonna work this on down, and that's it. That's on there. I'm gonna take my bolts, hand thread them in. Alrighty, once all your hardware is attached, your final thing is to dig back here, reconnect this. You're gonna want to make sure that you flip that red tab. There's nothing worse than having this harness fall off. Alrighty, and then once all that's done, we can reconnect our battery. There we go. Tighten that bad boy up. Alright guys, that's all for today. If you found this video helpful, by all means hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a comment down below. We'll see you next time.